Al habla Snake.
What's Snake?
This is Snake.
What is Metal Gear Solid? I think Metal Gear Solid is like the first proper ass attempt to make a movie in a video game.
Snake, you said that love could bloom on the battlefield.
Just pushing the boundaries of gaming in ways that nobody else was doing, especially at that time. Metal Gear Solid, I thought, was way ahead of its time with how cinematic it was.
You are different. What are you trying to say?
Meta elements like Psycho Mantis reading your memory card.
I can see into your mind. So, you like Suikoden?
You know, nobody else was thinking at that level.
The critics agree Metal Gear Solid is an absolute masterpiece.
I think it's one of the most iconic video games ever made. If not the most iconic video game made.
The best reason yet to own a PlayStation.
And another game that kind of defined the PlayStation era.
Well, one of the contenders for the greatest all-time video games ever, right?
My first memory of Metal Gear Solid was my friend Andrew bringing it over and pitching it to me as like this cool secret agent game. And then me instantly being blown away by it.
See you in hell, Liquid.
That was the first time I'd played anything like that. There was nothing anywhere near that at the time.
Metal Gear Solid, made by Konami in 1998, directed by blockbuster genius prophet Hideo Kojima.
人間ドラマもゲームで表現されてたんで、もしかしたらこれからこの業界っていうかこのメディアは可能性があるのかなと思って。
Hideo Kojima is being like, hey, video games, they're a nice start, but let's say we give them like a good shove along.
I was waiting for someone to kill me. A man like you. You're a hero.
It is cinema made playable.
Set me free.
The Sniper Wolf boss battle post-death cutscene and that whole, you know, Snake. Can love bloom on the battlefield? It humanized this character who initially just seemed like a seductress, assassin for hire. It just gave her a lot more depth and it made you like sympathize with the villain.
Everyone's here now.
Metal Gear Solid will always be the first game that ever made me cry, specifically the final battle with Sniper Wolf.
That moment messed me up. That's the moment where the game just goes from like, oh yeah, this is action, to, oh my god, I need to reevaluate my life. It's so good. I loved it.
Goodbye.
These moments of vulnerability that he displays.
Maybe it's time I live for someone else.
And that he invites.
Someone like you. Maybe that's the real way to live.
That was so not what you'd expect from a dude who is literally going around murdering an entire island's worth of goons. It was the more human stuff that I really love about Metal Gear.
誰も知らないアクションゲーム、誰も知らないスリル。名前はメタルギアソリッド。
At its core, Metal Gear Solid is a stealth, espionage, tactical action video game.
Basically, you're to stop a terrorist group who has threatened to activate Metal Gear, which is a nuclear weapon.
Play the role of Solid Snake, and you are sent in to solve a problem, but that problem then has so many layers to it.
Oh, you're wrong. The threat of nuclear war isn't gone. In fact, it's greater than it's ever been.
A nuclear weapon represents potentials outside the concepts of conventional weapons.
Gear Solid, you actually have a story that might have a more meaningful message to chew on that still would have gone completely over the heads of most of the children playing it.
He suffered with the guilt for the rest of his life.
There's a lot of mentions about like the START 3 treaty and nuclear non-proliferation ideologies, stuff that is so far removed from the simplistic toy-like arcade skill challenges of video games from the 80s and the 90s that Westerners were more used to.
映画を作りたい、もしくは映画を作りたかったけども映画ができずにゲームでそれを憂さを晴らしているようなそういう風に捉える方もいるんですけど、それは全く違いまして。
But amidst all the Kojima craziness, there's like poignant messages underneath it all, and it just takes you on a ride like no other. It's very much a Hideo Kojima game, and I love it to death.
First thing that comes to mind, I think, actually is the elevator scene, because I still believe that is one of the most iconic scenes in all of video games ever.
Snake, there's something I forgot to tell you before.
What?
The ride that single scene takes you on is so nuts, and it's told through a codec.
If you take out the one I'm wearing, that leaves 4.
Hey, this isn't first grade math class.
And it's just like literally Otacon's face just flipping out.
Look out, Snake! The guys who stole my stealth prototypes are in there with you!
And all of a sudden, the realization that you're not alone in that lift. Amazing.
And the tension is so insane because the writing is so good, because the voice actors are so good that I'm just thinking about it right now and I'm getting like, woo. That realization was intense, and then it just leads to an awesome fist fight with invisible dudes in an elevator, which is just...
There are certain video games that I think rewire your brain.
Hello!
Like the first time I saw Mario 64, I was like, my brain could not process it. I was like, what is actually happening while this is taking place? And I think Metal Gear was that experience for me that really showed me, wait, video games can do this?
Yo, 待って待って。は？え？何ヒデオって？何？
That's the first time I've ever had a video game with me like that. You know, they're like, hey, unplug the controller. And I was like, wait, what?
What?
He won't be able to read your mind.
If you're using the controller and you're playing against Psycho Mantis, there is a part where he can read all of your attacks because he's just reading the input on your controller.
コントローラーを2に刺す？ワイヤレスですが！
Not a lot of video games since then have really gone that hard with tackling the fourth wall. You had some similar gimmicks happen in like the Batman Arkham Asylum games.
Did anyone catch the game last night?
But one thing that has been a part of the conversation since then is that if fourth wall breaking gimmicks like that come up again, they are instantly compared to Metal Gear Solid 1, because Metal Gear Solid 1 had the fortune of doing it first and maybe doing it best.
That was the boss battle that made me go, this is why gaming can really separate itself from film, and when it comes to storytelling and where you're involved in it and the game can speak to you directly, and Kojima really leverages that.
その対応を入れていくことでもっと面白くなると。ほう。だから僕にとってゲームは非常に勉強になりますね。人を知る勉強に。
And that was the boss battle that made me go, this is what video games are all about. This is it, Chief.
We're in the Konami booth with the greatly anticipated Metal Gear Solid. This game definitely promises to live up to all the hype that was generated last year.
We'll be able to see Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation in stores this October. Keep an eye open for it.
I envy people who have not played Metal Gear Solid 1. I think it is an absolute timeless classic. It plays as simple and streamlined as an arcade hit from the 80s and has a timeless story as fascinating and intense as a 1950s Hitchcock masterpiece.
If you go back and play Metal Gear Solid 1, which I've done multiple times over the years, you are still blown away by just the framing of this and how breakneck, turn page, airplane fiction, spy flick, one beat to the next, you can't stop playing the whole way through. Now we look at it and we're like, oh yeah, games can be cinematic, whatever. But this dude, Hideo Kojima and his team did this on a PS1. You know what I mean? It's just how.
The legacy of Metal Gear, I mean, it's so many things. First of all, it solidified the stealth genre. It was the thing that put stealth games on the radar beyond solidifying the stealth genre. It moved the technological capabilities of gaming. Kojima always just pushes the boundaries of what a generation of consoles can achieve. And then on a narrative level, he really pushed and really utilized the interactive nature of video games to tell a story in a way you couldn't tell in a movie or in a book. And then from there, that set the groundwork for so many future game developers to take inspiration from. And the legacy of Metal Gear Solid is reflected in many of today's games. And I'm just glad that I got to live through this era where I saw all of that unfold live, you know, from Metal Gear Solid all the way to Metal Gear Solid 5. It's an incredible legacy. It's going to leave a mark, you know, for eternity, I think.
I mean, look at her. She's the best. She's the best. Otacon, I'm sorry, buddy. I really am. I'm sorry, Otacon.